The story of World War II is amazing, but certainly the story of what happened here in Oak Ridge, I think, is one of the great untold epic stories of American history. And if you don't have a personal connection to it, people know nothing about it. They might know enough about it to say, oh, you live in Oak Ridge, you must glow in the dark.
For each nuclear bomb, 2 large pieces were assembled at Y-12, and then they were shipped out west for final assembly.
There were many honored, respected physicists who said this is physically impossible. You just can't accomplish this.
Oak Ridge was selected as the first part of the Manhattan Project, actually in September of 1942.
They started building in 1943. By the summer of 1944, Oak Ridge was the 5th largest city in the state of Tennessee, and it had been built out of nothing. It had over 10 million square feet of industrial space. It had 75 to 100,000 people who were working on something that didn't know what it was.
A bunch of scientists that came out of Germany. Hitler made some bad mistakes. And they all came to this area, or out west. And a lot of the improvements were in their head. They were top-notch scientists.
And the primary purpose for Oak Ridge, known then as the Clinton Engineer Works, to separate the uranium for Little Boy, the world's first atomic bomb ever used in warfare.
And what they were making was this big. This was about the size of the fuel for the weaponry dropped on Japan. So you had 100,000 people working around the clock to make something this big. It reads almost like science fiction, like bad science fiction. I can't imagine being able to keep something that big that secret.
Everyone wanted to do war work. They wanted to be a part of it.
You know, if your boss said this is war work and it's important, you shut up. That's what you did. People were focused because the loss of American life during World War II would equal a 9/11 attack every 5 days for 3.5 years. And if you think of that kind of carnage happening every 5 days, it tends to focus a society.
I'm Pat Smith, and my husband is Neil Smith, and we grew up in Oak Ridge during World War II. My father came here to work at the Manhattan Project, and my mother and I 4 months later tagged along.
We came in and, well, where we're going to live. The only thing available was up just off of Outer Drive was a flat top. And so we moved into the flat top, and I had a little doggie that was amazing.
You were given a place to live according to your family. They were called semestos. Now, we had hutments. Here we had trailers. They brought in trailers. The Army was here, and the Army stayed in most of the trailers. We had flat tops, and those were prefab houses that was built in 2 sections, and they came and put those 2 sections together, and you had a house. Then the semestos were A, B, C, F. E were apartments. This town was supposed to last not more than 10 years.
And my dad was given a job, what they called little caleutrons, that were separators from from U-238 to U-235. At that time, they were separating and getting small amounts of bomb material. And my dad was sort of the foreman over them
I think I was too young to realize what was going on. I do remember going through the gates.
The guard shack was used for identification of people that were leaving and coming back in. If they were not authorized, they had to have a badge, they had to have some identification, and if one of those was missing, they didn't get in. And sometimes ask questions like, where do you work, what do you do, and where do you live in Oak Ridge? And by the time the interview was over, they would let you in, and if necessary, someone would follow you for a little while to make sure you got to the right place, or to make sure that you were not an individual that they didn't want in Oak Ridge.
My parents and I had been to Chattanooga, where my father's family lived, and his sister came back with us, my Aunt Odie, and Daddy had the pass for her and everything, so there was no problem with Aunt Odie coming through the gates. But he told my Uncle Liesel, now I have a pass for you for Saturday. Now don't come at any other time because you can't get in the gates. Well, my uncle decided that he would come up after work on Friday. And that's what he did. And in the wee hours of the morning, the guards came to our house to get my daddy, to take him down to the gate to vouch for my Uncle Liesel. He had been detained at the guard gate because he couldn't get in. He didn't have a pass. Well, we didn't have telephones in Oak Ridge. The residents just didn't have telephones, so they couldn't call Daddy, and that's the reason that one of the guards had to come get Daddy. My daddy was not happy with my uncle. He just really was not happy with it, because, you know, when the guard comes to your house, my word.
When you have the secrets that we had at that time, and you know, what's going on with your neighbor, or what's going on with something, we just all knew that don't talk about it.
They had I don't want to say hidden spies, but they had, you know, people that was listening to the residents. My father would go to what was called the Central Bus Station, and then the buses from there would go to the various plants. And I know several times my father, I can remember a couple of times, my father came home and said, well, someone was taken off of the bus today. And I remember hearing that a couple of times, and I said, why were they taken off of the bus? And he said they talked too much.
There was a gentleman came in, and he was talking too much, and I knew he was talking too much, but didn't really say anything. But the word got up to the main office, and the gentleman that was over security said, "You're out of here." I never saw him again.
We were only listed by first name. So if you were to go to this Girl Scout headquarters now and try to find my name, you would only find it as Patricia.
When I became 12, I had to have a badge, but I wasn't working anywhere, so I didn't really wear it until going in and out of the gate.
They were very resentful, and you could understand why they were resentful. We were from all over the country, and you know, these people were East Tennesseans, and they were used to just East Tennesseans. The people that lived here, that had farms here, you know, they were given like 30 days to get out, and was given very, very little for their property.
The main thing that helps Oak Ridge's history to be most widely known are the photographs of Ed Westcott.
Here's the thing that people don't realize about Ed. They were going to hire somebody to be the official photographer. But they were lucky enough to find Ed Westcott, who was 20 years old when he took the job. 20, mind you. And they estimated that he took between 15 and 20,000 photographs. They could have found an old salty photographer who was at the end of his career, and he would have treated it like a 9-to-5 job. But Ed was doing it 7 days a week. He was building up this amazing archive of work. We're very lucky that he got that job, because it wasn't a job, it was an obsession.
But without Ed's photographs, we would not be nearly as able to tell our story as we are with those tremendous photographs. He was an artist, and he did an excellent job of capturing the history and telling the story of the people.
He worked for the Corps of Engineers in the Nashville office, and then he had an opportunity to come to Oak Ridge, which he took. He did not know what his assignment would be when he got here, until he got here, because it was top secret. Anything that actually moved that was of importance, that's what he photographed. He was assigned to photograph building the 3 nuclear plants and the daily life and construction of the city as well. As time went on, he did photographs of people's weddings, birthday parties for children, other outside activities. And so you could almost name a subject and he's made photographs of it. But he still had a boss that he had to do daily photographs pertaining to his job, and then after his job he would do some of these other photographs. Now in the very beginning, he was the only one allowed to have a camera. He had a camera pass, so he had some other people come on board later on and help him do some of his work that he was assigned to do. He was just doing his job. Nobody really knew what this was going to entail as we speak today, how important those photographs are to tell the story and the history of Oak Ridge.
But from the time that we bombed Hiroshima to the time Japan surrendered was 9 days. It was so fast that people around the nation were just shocked, because they had been getting messages from the government, we're going to invade Japan on November 1st. And it's going to be horrific. And then all of a sudden, like that, it was over. And President Truman got on the radio to announce that we had used this new weapon. And he said, oh, by the way, this weapon was developed in Richland, Washington, Los Alamos, New Mexico, and Oak Ridge, Tennessee, outside of Knoxville. And so for most of the workers, they found out what they were working on from the President of the United States.
I remember running into the house. I needed something. I needed to tell my mom something. I don't remember what it was, but it was really important. and she was listening to the radio and she was shushing me. And I didn't understand why she was shushing me, because I really needed to tell her something. And that's when they realized what was going on. When they opened the gates, there was a big celebrations and parade, and I was in the parade. They had movie stars to come in, and it was quite a celebration.
This town was created to help end the war, and they did do it. And then they went on to help end the arms race with the Soviets because of these massive buildup of missiles we had. And so they're very proud of that. And now Oak Ridge National Laboratory is doing amazing things with supercomputers and climate change and batteries. And so the town is still on the cutting edge. But as in during World War II, it all happens behind the security fence.
I guess I was fortunate at Y-12. I love working on equipment, and this was highly sophisticated equipment, and we were upgrading, so it was a wonderful time for me.
We have some friends that we went to high school with. They're still people here.
The manager is still coming to these class get-togethers every other month, and of course our group is going down as we're getting older and passing away, but we still have maybe 15 or 20 that come every other month to this restaurant and have lunch together. We have the best schools around because we have teachers coming here from everywhere, and there are people from all countries, you know, in all the states that worked here. In fact, in our class, there were class members from all the states.
Yeah, there are, of course, numerous ones who live in other states, but there's a good core group that have stayed here in the Oak Ridge area. Yeah, and most of the people who come to the luncheons live either in Oak Ridge or in a nearby vicinity. So.
We had a building here that we called the Wildcat Den. And that was a joy growing up, particularly in high school. But after the big sporting events, football and basketball games and things, as many of us as could would go to the den. And that was a great joy at that time, something I think the teenagers now miss.
High school was a lot of fun. Growing up in Oak Ridge was great because there weren't any old people over here around here to contradict us and make us behave, and we did everything we wanted to do, and I love living. I have a good time every day, yeah, including today.
I think that we have a culture of shame around the bombings. I don't think we should be proud, but those are two ends of the spectrum. And I think there needs to be something more in the middle.
So the people who were working here, while most of them had no idea what they were doing, they knew that what they were doing was helping to win the war. Now you have to remember that if you look at the number of deaths caused by warfare over our history, you'll see two spikes, one in World War I, and you'll see a 60 million spike in World War II. Since then, the numbers are very, very low, all right, for 75 years. But at the time, these 60 million people were losing their lives. These people working here in Oak Ridge knew that that was happening every day. And they probably knew somebody, if not every day, every week, every month, people that they knew were being killed.
The one thing they never talk about, but it comes through loud and clear, is that these people had faith in large institutions to do the right thing for the right reason. So your pre-Watergate, pre-Vietnam thing is totally true. I think for many of them, particularly the ones that were here during World War II, have just kind of accepted the fact that they're never going to be honored. They're always going to be kind of marginalized because they're always going to be hooked into Hiroshima. I don't think this story is totally going to go away, but certainly the memory of it is going to be greatly reduced. And what I hope happens is that the generation, quote unquote, discovers it